And y'all think folks acting crazy and losing their mind now? You wait until the month of October over with and these folks figure out that their health care gone. You hold your horses, okay? Hold your horses. I tell you what, psychologically, a lot of people can't handle not being able to afford their day-to-day necessities. A lot of people are finna be in a position to find themselves in a position that they've never been in their lives, and they're not gonna know how to cope, which tends to run people a little cuckoo. Okay, so hold your horses, because after October, if not in the month of October, y'all think y'all done seen something? You just hold on. When it's medical, when they get through doing what they did, when the remnants of what they've done sets in next month, and some more people lose their jobs before the end of the year, because we know it goes in cycles anyway. A lot of these large corporations lay off anyway, regardless to whatever administration is in the office. You just hold your horses. Losing healthcare and losing jobs is a recipe for disaster. You think folks being crazy? Hold on.
Okay, listen, the biggest problem with Americans is that we don't think long term. So Senator Elizabeth Warren has laid it out for us. You can Google this. This is part of the big, beautiful bill. But all you're thinking about is tax breaks and their extending of tax breaks. You're not thinking, how is this going to affect me in 2027? So let's go through that. July 4th, they made it harder for people with SNAP to get food, while they gave trillions in giveaways to the wealthy and corporations. November the 1st, healthcare open enrollment begins with new higher premiums, making it more expensive for people to access healthcare. December the 31st, clean energy and energy efficiency tax credits ends. You know that the poor and the middle class are going to be affected by climate change the most. Hurricane Helene, Texas floods. This is not the rich that are going to be affected. So just these three things alone benefit the rich and harm the poor. Now, in 2026, July 1st, new student loan borrowers hit with higher monthly payments, meaning more 18 plus are going to have harder times paying off their student loans, meaning we're going to have less money in the economy. Now, November the 3rd is the midterm. Their hope is that you guys won't notice all these things, that you won't know enough people that this affects, so you'll still vote for them. But then, right after that is when the problems begin. New paperwork requirements for Medicaid begin. So those of you who are not working, who have Medicaid or are in a state and don't even know you have Medicaid because it's not called Medicaid, and you might want to look into that, are going to be having a harder time getting your Medicaid and keeping your Medicaid. National Private School Voucher Program begins, taking more money from public schools, putting it into privates. And a lot of areas don't even have private schools. No options are nearby. What do they do? Now, October the 1st, states squeeze to pick up more Medicaid and SNAP costs, meaning more people are going to start losing their SNAP and their Medicaid. And then finally, July 1st, many current student loan borrowers forced to switch to plan with higher payments, less money. Every single one of these things will affect the poor. They will not affect the rich. Doesn't that seem like a problem?
So the Trump administration is changing the name of the Big Beautiful Bill. They're changing the name of the Big Beautiful Bill because the only reason why it was named the Big Beautiful Bill was so that it could get passed. See, they counted on the fact that there are 186 million Americans whose literacy level is below that of a sixth grader. So they knew that even if you could read it, you weren't going to comprehend. You were going to see Big Beautiful Bill and think exactly that, Big Beautiful Bill. And that's what happened. And now they're coming out and stating that they're going to be changing the name because it does not accurately describe exactly what is in the bill. But see, when the Democrats came out and told y'all what was in the bill, when the 92% and the most educated group in the United States, the African American women, tried to tell you what was in the bill, you said no, you thought that you knew better. And now Donald Trump is literally saying that, nah, we have to change the name because the name that we gave it was successful in it getting passed. But it doesn't tell the people exactly what's in the bill. And because now people are starting to realize what was in the bill, the polls of the bill, as far as how it's favored amongst the American citizens, have plummeted. And that's why now they're trying to change it so that they can make it seem like they're being transparent, like they're a transparent government. Yeah, I got a lot of screenshots, but don't pay attention to that, okay? You could go and find the article on USA.com and look at the title right there. It says that Trump rebrands Big Beautiful Bill amid poor polling. What is highlighted in yellow is what I'm going to be reading out aloud. So you can follow along, as well as making it very clear the quotes that came from Donald Trump, okay? These are words that came out of this man's mouth. So the first one is, so the bill. I'm not going to use the term great, big, beautiful, Trump said. It was good for getting it approved, but it is not good for explaining to the people what it is all about. Okay? The next quote is, it's a massive tax cut for the middle class, Trump said. This is a lie. It's a lie. Like, he's still counting on the fact that not only is 43 million Americans illiterate overall, but there are 186 million who have the literacy level under that of a sixth grader. So even if they can read the actual words, they have a hard time comprehending it. Okay, they have a hard time actually understanding what they're reading. So he's still fucking lying. It is a lie because the Democratic Party, the 92%, have been telling you that everything that is in this bill, right, and you could read along again with what is highlighted in yellow, that it disproportionately benefited the wealthy and hurt lower income Americans, okay? The Congressional Budget Office projects that it will result in 10 million more people without health insurance by 2034. And while the Senate Joint Economic Committee minority estimates that about 20 million people will lose or could lose coverage, Medicaid is being cut by nearly $1 trillion. They knew that. They knew exactly what was going to be in the bill. They knew exactly how much it was going to hurt the middle class and lower Americans. However, they counted on the fact that you couldn't read. They counted on the fact that majority of you in rural America could not read to get this bill passed so that they could take away the funding that you so desperately need. It is because you allowed for this to be passed why there are health medical professionals coming out right now telling us that they're getting laid off, why hospitals are closing, why health programs and centers are closing, why it's literally looking like the death rate toll is about to skyrocket in the next couple of years. It's because he counted on the fact that you couldn't read. He counted on the fact that you were dumb and you couldn't read, and he used it against you, and he was successful. But when the Democrats, right, when the 92%, the people who can read, who can comprehend, who did understand, tried to let you know what was in that bill, you said, no, it's named the Big Beautiful Bill. It must be great. You're welcome.
This is the only video you need to watch to actually understand what the Big Beautiful Bill is. Now, before I start, I just want to say this is not my opinion. This is the facts about the things that this bill will actually do. Now, first up, the reason that this bill is so hard to explain and why you're not seeing a lot of videos of somebody breaking down everything that's included in this bill, it's because it's very hard to do that. Because this bill is like, think about this bill as it's including a bunch of little things, right? And it's all combining them all into one bill. And the reason they want to do that is because, say they put a couple things in this bill that the public might see as favorable, like no tax on tips. So what they can do is they sneak some favorable things into a bill like this, such as no tax on tips. And then when a lot of everything else included in this bill is extremely negative, they can focus on the little parts of this bill that they find to be positive for the general public and not say anything about the parts of this bill that are extremely negative. So because of the amount of things that this bill will change, and because of the way that the media is trying to highlight very specific things and ignore other things, it makes it a lot harder to talk about. Now, at this point, I'm seeing reports of different numbers here and there, but it seems like on average, people are saying that this bill in length is about 101 pages long. And for somebody to sit down and read through every single word on all of those pages, it would take about 15 hours. This video is not going to be 15 hours long, so there will be things in this bill that I do not cover. I'm going to do my best to cover the most important things that will have the most effects on the most amount of people. So a lot of what is covered in this bill is either things that they want to start spending more taxes on, or things that they want to cut and start spending less of our tax money on. One of the biggest and most important things that they are cutting taxes on, they're spending less government money on, is going to be healthcare and Medicaid spending. What this really means is that there are some hospitals out there that are funded by the government, especially in more rural areas where they might not have, as much people coming in and might not make as much money to keep themselves afloat. The government will subsidize some of these hospitals in these rural areas. Under the Big Beautiful Bill, a lot of these hospitals in rural areas will be have to be shut down because they're going to lose their government funding. This means that if you live in somewhere where, it's not a big city and there's maybe one little hospital here or there, there's a good chance that that hospital will be shut down. And if you are having a life-threatening emergency, you're going to have to drive a lot longer or a lot further to get to the next closest hospital. Like I had already mentioned, Medicaid spending from the government is going to be cut rather significantly. What this really means is Medicaid is a government-funded health care. And if Medicaid spending is cut, a lot of people who are currently on Medicaid will lose their health insurance. This means that if they go to the hospital for an injury, for a life-threatening illness, and they don't have insurance, in the United States, that just means they are going to be in crippling debt and never be able to pay off a medical bill because they wanted to survive. They are also making cuts to both education and food assistance. This means that less people will have access to government-funded food. So if there is a family out there that is struggling and currently receiving financial aid to survive and eat food, there is a good chance that they may lose access to that aid, which will lead to more starving families in the United States. Back to education, there's going to be cuts for public school funding, as well as cuts for Pell Grants for college students. When schools have less money, that means a worse education for your children and the next generation's children. Less Pell Grants for college students means that less college students are going to be able to afford to college, and we're going to have a less educated America. Now, the next logical thing that you might be asking is, why would they cut all of these social programs and save all of this money? Where is this money going to go? What are they trying to do with it? And the answer to a large portion of that is they're giving massive tax breaks to big corporations and billionaires. So in the United States, we're going to see more starving children, less education, less available hospitals, just to name a few of the things that are being cut. And the reason for that is so that we can give more money to the 1%. Along with giving more money to billionaires, a lot of this money is also going towards the military budget and towards Border Patrol. So those are some of the big key points that you may have seen more people already talking about. But like I said, the reason that people will make bills in the way that this one is being created is specifically to highlight specific portions of it, say, hey, focus on this. That way that this other shitty stuff that's happening in the bill is not being spoken about. That way it can be passed and turned into a law without you really understanding what you just voted for. Some of the less talked about things that are included in this bill include rollbacks on protections for the environment and less funding for climate change. They are also making it harder for unions to organize. And there are even some favors in this bill that are only directly related to some of their biggest donors. And this includes things like some new special rules that only apply to massive hedge funds or massive real estate developers. So to kind of give you another general summary, again, it's impossible to talk about everything that's included in this bill because it is 101 pages long and would take 15 hours to read through. And that is very intentional from the Republicans. They're doing that specifically to highlight a few little things here and there that they want you to like, while throwing in a bunch of other bullshit that they don't want you to see. That way the bill will seem more favorable overall. Basically, what's going on is they're cutting a lot of social programs, like the healthcare, like the food for kids, like education. And they're doing that so that they can give more money to billionaires, give more money to the Border Patrol, and give more money to the military. So what they're doing is ruining the lives of the lower class in the United States. That way they can make the lives of the 1% just that much better. So as you may have heard, this bill passed in the Senate yesterday. And it came down to a vote of 50-50. It was nice and even, both sides. And when there is a 50-50 in the Senate in the United States, the last vote, the tiebreaker, is done by the vice president. Obviously, the vice president agreed to pass the bill because it's Trump's bill and this is his vice president. Now that that's done, the next step is that this bill is going to go back to the House. They will vote on this exact bill in a similar way that the Senate did. If the House passes the bill, which it is close, it was very close in the Senate, it's going to be close in the House. If it's passed by the Republicans, and it will go to Trump's desk, where he either has the option to pass the law or veto it. And I think we all understand what his choice would be there. Reports are showing that the House is looking to have a vote done by July 4th. And the next step would be sending it to the president's office where he's going to sign it off.